Welcome to the Celtic Way Morning Briefing Live. I'm Tony Haggerty, A10 Twitter handle as you can see. And once again, I'm delighted to be joined by Alison McConnell. Morning, Alison, how are you?
Very well, thanks, Tony. Yourself?
I'm okay. How is it down your way? Snowing in East Kilbride?
It was a bit sleety earlier on, but it's gone off. It's just a bit miserable. It's quite cold and a bit dank, but other than that, it's fine.
I tell you what's not miserable, the world of Celtic. And they plough on regardless and are on to Fir Park on Sunday, Alison. Now, you touched upon it the other day and made the great and the valid point that this match has just become as vitally important as the Rangers match on Wednesday. Not to lose that initiative by hitting the top. They've got to consolidate that and even have a chance to move 4 points ahead of Rangers because Rangers playing the later kick-off and exert some kind of pressure, Alison, and see how Rangers handle it. But it's all about winning for Celtic, isn't it?
I think it's two-pronged on Sunday. I think there's an opportunity to sustain the momentum that they've built up since resuming action after the premature winter break. I don't think they'll want to encourage Rangers in any fashion. I think now what they want to do is continue in the same vein. And of course, with Rangers being the later kick-off, it's an opportunity just to apply an additional layer really to that game. And I think too, there's always, for any team who comes out of the Derby game having lost, I think there's always a look at what the response is. There's always a need for an immediate reaction to that. I'm sure Rangers will want to come out of the Hearts game not having lost further ground. I thought it was a bruising game for them on Wednesday night on a couple of levels, not just the defeat, but the manner of the defeat. And I think they'll regard the game against Hearts as vitally important just to steady things and get back onto a solid footing. So I think from Celtic's perspective, it's about sustaining what they've already built and just trying to add to the pressure that's already on Rangers because of everything that's now around the club.
Now, Tom Rogic returns, Alison. Does he walk straight back into the side for you, or do you see Ange making many changes to that starting lineup that blitzed Rangers in the first half, certainly?
I think that's a very interesting question, and not even just for Tom Rogic. I think there's an interesting question to be asked now about what is the starting 11, what is Ange Postecoglou's best starting 11. For the opening half of the campaign, the midfield didn't waver unless there were injury or suspension issues. You had a very reliable triumvirate of Callum McGregor, Tom Rogic and David Turnbull. Having lost all three for a point there, it was an entirely new midfield that took to the field, and I think they would be beyond reproach in terms of how they went about their business. I think Callum McGregor is a very obvious starter if and when he's fit and available. I'm not sure if he will play now on Sunday at Fir Park, if he'll just continue playing well. The cheekbone heals. I think we learned it was a double fracture. I'm not sure if there'll be an opportunity to rest him, to take him out and just give his body that opportunity to heal. I think he'd wanted to play in a game of such magnitude. I'm not sure how sensible it is to keep him in, or maybe to let it just now recover. You can still see the significant bruising on his face when he took the mask off on Wednesday night. So I just wonder if maybe Rogic comes back in and maybe Hatate plays that deeper role, or O'Reilly plays that deeper role. I think that is a consideration for Sunday. But in a wider sense, I think there is an interesting conversation to be had now about what is the best 11, because the guys who've come in have been fairly seamless additions into the first team.
It's the wonderful headache that he's been craving all season, though, isn't it, Alison? He wants these players to be fighting for a starting slot, and he wants that kind of, the chance to rotate his team if need be. But that's the big calls are on him now. But these are the calls that he wants to make, isn't it?
I don't think that's unique to Ange Postecoglou or unique to Celtic. I think any manager looks for depth, looks for quality. You know it's a long campaign. I think if you have ambitions to go and win a title and win trophies and compete in domestic and European football, I think you know that you need decent numbers, you need decent quality in the side. And I think what he has and now are options if he gets to a point where everyone is fit and available, which is something he's not had so far this season. He's not had an opportunity yet to put his best team out on the pitch at any point in this campaign. But when he has a fully fit squad, I do think there are options. I think it's very different from the position he found himself in at the beginning of the season when he'd first come in, and what you have seen and what you really saw and what was illustrated in Wednesday night's starting lineup was it is starting to look very much like an Ange Postecoglou side. I think there were only 2 players who survived on Wednesday night, Greg Taylor and Callum McGregor, who were at the club last season. The rest have all been introduced either in the summer transfer window or in January. So what you're seeing is that he has now, with a couple of windows behind him, the opportunity to put his own stamp on the team, bring in his own players, and there's most certainly there is depth now.
It's the luxury of having that option, though, isn't it, Alison, that has been denied him up until this point. So it'll be interesting to see what he does moving forward. Oh, we seem to have lost Alison. Are you still there, Alison? You're frozen on the screen. Are you back? Well, I'll take some comments in the meantime, see what you guys are saying on the match days in for me. The boys playing with confidence and he's some player, says David Bradley. Yep, don't disagree with that. I think he's made an impressive start to his Celtic career. Frank Brennan, regular contributor. Morning, Frank. Start with the same 11 on Sunday if they're all fit enough to start, so the away Celtic support can give them the biggest role of approval for all that they've done on Wednesday night and they go on and win. Well, that's the plan. Jill Pill, morning, Phil. Oh, Jill, Motherwell, I must win. Indeed. Do we have Alison back yet? Oh, here we go. Something's happening. Sorry about this, guys. The wonders of modern technology. Jill Pill comes in again. Maybe Resitati. Remember, he's played a full season in Japan and we have so many big games coming up. Manager's call again, as we will see. Hello, you're back. Or are you? Strachan's laptop says Tom Rogic has never really been a consistent starter anyway. Can be an effective impact player at times, so maybe an ideal problem to have. Interesting theory, that one. And is Alison back in the room yet? No, she's not. I would sing, guys, but you probably don't want that of a Friday. You want to enjoy your weekend. Edward Wire, I quite like that. Alison a bit late with the silent protest. Very Joel, Trey Joel. Keep the comments coming in, guys, because I'll read them out as well. And I also wanted to gain your thoughts on Dyson Maeda or Georgios Giakoumakis. Who do you think should lead the line on Sunday? Competition for places. Aaron L says competition for places pushed to a level we've never seen at Celtic. Totally agree with that. I think it's just great. And the Retro Celtic comes in and says, how good was Georgios Giakoumakis on Wednesday? He was very good. I believe we've got Alison back. Hey, hello. How you doing?
Well, a tentative return, I would say, I think.
Yeah. The wonders of modern technology. It happens, Alison, you know. So I can't remember what I said. We were talking about the luxury of having the luxury of a lot of options, wasn't we? Or weren't we? Sorry. I think that's where we'd got to. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a headache that all managers claim to enjoy, isn't it? I think it's it's where you want to go. You want to know that if you have players who go out, you have similar quality to replace them if they're unavailable, and that you have options to carry you through the duration of a campaign and cope with all the demands that brings.
I was saying as well on the, just as you left the bulletin there, we now have also Dyson Maeda and Georgios Giakoumakis, a straight shootout to see who spearheads the attack, Alison. Another interesting one for Ange, and obviously it'll be his decision. But despite the fact he didn't score the other night, a lot of people were really impressed by Giakoumakis. What were your thoughts on his overall performance?
I thought he played well. I would have to confess, I would have to say my own thoughts would be that I've been on the fence a bit when I've watched him, but I think he's a different player than what I thought he was when he came in. He offers more than just a burly physical presence. I think you saw that. I thought he took his goal against Hearts particularly well, and I thought his movement on Wednesday night was good. I thought he contributed to the attacking lineup. I thought he was unlucky not to score, but I think he was a bit frustrated not to score at times, and a bit frustrated as the game went on. But I thought he could feel quietly satisfied with his contribution, and he's one that I think there may be more to come. I would guess that I think Maeda may be in front of him in terms of a nick him to it just now. And I think when Kyogo Furuhashi is fit and available, I think there's an interesting conundrum there about where they fit in and how they fit in. So I think he has his work cut out for him to earn a regular start, and I think he'll use the time at the minute just to try and push his way in and just to try and showcase what he has and what he brings to the table in terms of goals and other attributes. But I do think he offers more than just a physical presence. I think there's more to his game, and we've seen more to his game than that.
He was, the last couple of games, he's been denied by some great goalkeeping. People might see it differently and say he's missed sitters, but that's purely how you see it. But I mean, he had a great save. Seagrace pulled off a great save from close range. McGregor's pulled off 3 cracking saves. So I mean, he can't do much more else than put the ball in the net, can he, Alison? You know.
Thought Seagrace. The Alan McGregor, I think there's an argument to say you would expect Alan McGregor to have made the saves that he did. I think you would maybe be asking questions if he hadn't, but I think he'd done enough. I think to feel as though he'd contributed to the win and contributed to the performance, and I think you got a glimpse of what he offers in that forward as part of a front three.
Yeah. So who plays on Sunday for you, Maeda or Giakoumakis? You still say Maeda's above him in the pecking order?
My guess would be Maeda, but it's based on nothing than supposition. I can't offer any more than that. I think Maeda may go in and start. I think he may have to content himself with a place on the bench. But it is an interesting question now about who do you think starts and what you think the manager's optimum starting side is.
Now, Jota has come back in and hit the ground running, but one thing we didn't touch upon on the other side was Liel Abada and his finish for the third goal on Wednesday night. That's 13 goals, 8 assists, I believe, Alison, from a 21-year-old. I mean, unbelievable contribution, isn't it, for Celtic this season?
It's an outstanding contribution. I think he slipped under the radar simply because Jota and Kyogo made such an impressive impact and such an immediate impact that I think Abada wasn't quite as headline grabbing is what the other two were, but I think he's made an outstanding contribution. I think when you look at the goals, he would be on course to hit the 20 goal mark, I think, come the end of the season if he stays fit. I think for someone coming into the club from a new culture, fairly young player coming in and trying to acclimatise and find your feet within a club that has very particular and unique demands. I don't think it's always as easy as what it looks to go into the team, to stay in the team and to make a very telling contribution. And I think when you factor in his age, I think he was 19 when he arrived. I think he's 20 now. I think you would have to applaud the contribution and expect, again, that he's another one who improves as the season goes on.
I think he's a confidence player as well, hasn't he? Because he's formed dipped a wee bit in the middle of the season there, or just before Christmas, and people were saying he could do with, time on the bench. But he's certainly knuckled down, and the return of James Forrest has actually helped him, and we spoke about that it could be a help to him rather than a hindrance, because he knows the bar and the level that he has to produce, and he's certainly produced, hasn't he?
Yeah, you couldn't quibble with the stats. You couldn't argue with his contribution. I thought the goal he took on Wednesday night was excellent. I thought question marks to be asked of Rangers' defence in it, but I thought in terms of the finish, he took it very well. He read it very well. I think there was a bit of criticism before Christmas. I think you will get that. One, given his age, and two, given the position that he plays. I think sometimes it tends to be the case with wingers that they dip in and out of form. But what you've seen essentially since they've come back after the break is that he's really picked up and kicked on again. I think it's not just the goals, but it's been important goals that he's scored. None more so, that I would argue, than the goal against Dundee United at the weekend, which really set the scene for Wednesday night's performance. But I think he'll be delighted with the contribution he's made, and you would expect now that shirt's his for someone to dislodge.
A bit of advice for you, Alison, from the Retro Celtic, who says, put 50 pence in your meter. There you go. If you're of an old vintage like me, you'll remember the meters that you put money in. There you go. 6 pences and tanners. It's all been all our yesterdays this week, Alison. Now, Celtic are in an amazingly consistent run of form, Alison. I think that's 13 out of the last 14. They've won, the blip being the St Mirren game. It is incredible for them, isn't it? And they just show no signs of letting up.
Well, it points to consistency. I think it's 22 games unbeaten now across all domestic competition. I think it's an impressive run of form. I think that's what led to the confidence going into Wednesday night's game. I think when you have momentum like that, I think it breeds a level of assurance within the team. It's why Celtic, I think, were so tentative in that fixture last season, that they never managed to piece together any significant runs of form other than a decent December. I think it was very staccato. I think it can be so important in terms of the confidence and belief through a team when you go on a run and a sequence of results that they've had. I think it has a wider impact than just the points that come on the board. I think it's what the culture that it creates around the club and what it brings into the dressing room. I think you're seeing that at the minute. They look very much like a different team than where they were at the start of the season, when you could sense the fragility around them still. I think there's an assurance about the way that they play. I think there are still elements. I think you're still looking and seeing that they can improve. I think there have been times where they've faded in games or maybe not been clinical enough in games, but I think people have been warmed by the football philosophy that's on show. I think you know what you're going to get. I think there's a very attacking edge to Celtic all the time. I think it throws up all manner of possibilities within games. And I think what you're seeing is players who are enjoying playing in that, and a support who are enjoying watching it.
And folks, we're also educational in this programme. That's eviscerated and staccato words from Alison McConnell during the Celtic Way briefings this week. Excellent stuff, Alison. Now, I'm going to end it there in case we have any more problems. But just to say, have a wonderful weekend. I'm sure you've had a wonderful week up until this point with the Derby win. Hopefully Celtic can keep that momentum going, Alison, and secure their points at Fir Park. Thank you for your contribution. I know there's nothing worse than when you're at the mercy of technology. Is there not? Thanks for the comments, guys. We shall reconvene on Monday and see if Celtic are still top of the league. Thanks, Alison. Appreciate it.
Pleasure.